This will correspond to your manuals that you have for students on page 26. So if you kind of want to keep up with where we are and scroll through your notes, that would be an easy way to do it. So no excuses to lead generation. One of the things that's always difficult when we try to do lead generation or anytime we're approaching people that we don't know, it can be very daunting. Many of us are not naturally outgoing, and anyone who is outgoing is only such to a degree. And there's a wide variety and spectrum of folks of how easy it is to talk to and get to know strangers. So there are some suggestions here. I think there's basically two ways to do it. And the simplest way to illustrate that would be, how do you get into a cold swimming pool? In the middle of the summer when it's 100 degrees out and the water is 62 degrees, how do you get in? Well, one methodology is to get in, start with your feet and then to your ankles and knees, and slowly immerse yourself in the water and get used to it as gradually as possible. The other methodology is run to the side of the pool and jump in. One big splash, one big shock, and then away you go. We'll find that in lead generation, it's very similar. The suggestion here is more of the put your foot in first, then your knees, and so on, and get used to it more slowly. So it says if you don't like to cold call strangers, then start by calling people you know. So that would be, in psychology terms, something called successive approximation, where you get to the final desired behavior by taking small steps, ever increasingly closer to the goal that you're trying to do. If you spend all your morning with email, then one of the things you might want to do is time block to do this later in the day. I am a firm believer that email is a discipline, just like doing lead generation. It comes in at such a huge volume that it's almost impossible to keep up with it if you don't have a system. And even then, it's not easy. When I was at Google, which I was there for over 4 years, one of the things that we had was a ROI on how long you could take to read your emails. And generally what it was, if you were in the to line of the email, then the expectation was that you would be answering that email within 2 hours of receiving it. And if you were on the copy line or the blind copy line, then it was expected that you had 24 hours to return that email. And the company actually used that as part of their criteria for your performance. So the idea of getting into an email regiment was pushed into me pretty hard when I worked at Google. And I've always found that something a little less than that, but modified, has been very helpful. So as an example, to get through email, I get up in the morning and I'm an early riser and early to bed, been that way my whole life. And what I do is sometime between 5:30 and 6:30 a.m., I read all my emails, catch up for everything that happened the day before, if things had come in since I stopped looking at email in the afternoon, and take care of all those correspondence first thing. Then I can go about my exercise regimen and then on into the office. When I get in the office, I try to concentrate on the important things and the urgent that are in front of me for the day in the schedule. And then I take time in the afternoon at 4 to go through my email one more time and make sure that I've caught everything that needed to be done during the day. So blocking out time is really important. Blocking out time for your recruiting calling, or for, in this case, your lead generation, is also really important. If you can't reach people in the morning, then touch them with a voicemail or a message. That's really important. When I started cold calling and I would get the voicemail, I would just not leave a message, because they didn't know me from anybody else, and it's just a stranger calling, leaving a voicemail. But then I realized that introducing myself in just a couple of quick words in a voicemail, why not? It's a chance to have a communication. And if it's someone that I've already had contact with and we had a good conversation, then it just shows that you're thinking about them, and you go on with the next lead generation call. So all of these kind of give you a gentle way to become involved and to generate leads in a systematic way. The other way to do it is, if this is, as we've described thus far, a way to do it by getting into a pool with your toe and then your foot and then your ankle and doing it gradually, there's also a jump-in way. And the jump-in way is you take your leads and you decide, I'm not going to get up from this table until I make 20 phone calls. Doesn't matter if they pick up or I have to leave a message. I am not getting up from this table or doing anything else until I finish 20 calls. At the end of 20 calls, I can take a quick break, sit back down, and then I can't get up to the table from the table again until I have another 20 calls. So I've done this for tests on myself to see how well I could concentrate and how long I could endure cold calling. And my answer was 60 is the limit. I can't go beyond 60. I can't force myself to sit there, and I get antsy and I just can't. I found that the optimum is actually about 40 calls. If it's just flat out cold calling, it gets me into the groove. It gets me doing it. The discipline feels good. And at the end of 40, I quit for the day. Wherever I am with however many picked up, however many didn't pick up. Those types of disciplines are a way to jump straight in if you're goal oriented. And although I'm pretty introverted by nature, I am massively goal oriented, especially in something that feels like a contest. So that's what I've done to help discipline myself to lead generation. Any questions or comments on that? If not, let's keep going. Okay, set lead generation goals. So the number of calls, the number of contacts, number of additions to your database, appointments with buyers, appointments with sellers, all real important. And you ought to run metrics around all of them. And this is one of those elevator speech kind of things where if you want these to actually work, you have to be able to remember them. One of the things that doesn't work is goals and objectives that you can't remember and you have to look at a paper to remember what it is. If it's not on the front of your mind and the tip of your tongue, chances are you're not going to remember or take the time to figure it out. So the number of calls, the number of contacts, all of these, you should just have a realistic goal and start low. Really, the point is to change the behavior, and then you can adjust the volume. But the behavior is the hard part. So if you don't like calling or like doing any of this stuff, the best thing to do is say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to make 3 calls. I'm going to make 3 contacts. I'm going to do 1 addition to my database, 1 buyer appointment, and 1 seller appointment. I can remember that. That's pretty easy. 3, 3, 1, 1, 1. I can do that. And then after you do that for a couple of weeks, and it actually takes between 20 and 30 repetitions to build a habit, according to certain psychological studies, then you got a habit. You can adjust the habit up or down until you find a reasonable period of time. So for me, whenever I'm doing calling, my favorite slot is 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. because that's when I hit the most number of folks who pick up the phone and seem to be friendly. After 4 p.m., between 4 and 5, it drops off massively. After 5 o'clock, I get a lot of people who are just kind of irritated to be called. It makes sense. They're probably getting on with their day, maybe with their family or dinners. In the morning, I have found that the 9:30 to 10:30 window works very well, or the 10 to 11. Anything much before 9:30, I find is difficult because people are trying to organize and get started with their days. Anything after 11, people are starting to think about or involved with lunches. So that's what I do to try and hit numbers and build in a discipline. And I also have a confessor. So I have a MAPS coach who works with me. And when I have trouble getting to this on one day, I'll tell him. So I'm just flat out having trouble. And he'll encourage me to get at it. I get off the phone and start doing it. So it can all be done. It's just a matter of changing a behavior. And of course, we all know in every aspect of life that changing behaviors is key to making progress toward our goals. Okay, so find the motivated. 2 M's of lead generation: method and message. Um, this is from the book itself. It says you can motive aid someone, but you can't motivate them. So what they're trying to say is motivation is kind of an internal thing. It can have external factors, but at the end of the day, internally, somebody has to have a reason for changing something or for doing something. They generally don't do it for no reason at all, unless you're a teenager under the influence of uh, massive surges in hormones, and then you never know. Those can overcome any real need to do something just by sheer chemical motivation. So we're going to try to work with method and message and see what we can do to increase our effectiveness in doing prospects. So there's 2 things that we're going to draw a definition difference between. Prospecting and marketing. They're 2 different things. And great agents do both, prospecting and marketing. They have to be done as well. And we're going to cover both cases of what it is to prospect and what it is to market. So here it is, spelled out in kind of a decision tree that branches out. So the message, if it's your message, must match your market, or your message must match your offer. So there's target audiences for marketing, and then there's also direct and indirect targets for your messaging. And ultimately, what you're trying to do is get a response. So marketing something is sort of an indirect way to do it. It's a way to reach out through a media that does not include direct face-to-face communication or telephone communication. And direct recruiting is going to be when you're out there trying to get your contacts and you're speaking to them directly. It's marketing if you're doing it through materials or other media other than verbal speech. So to do that, make an offer for immediate response, MOFR. The immediate response, the more motivated, the more immediate the response, the more motivated the lead. So this is easy. When you catch somebody at a moment when they really need something, you will find that there's a very short gap between realizing that you could help them with the need and them asking for help with that need. It's very short. If you ask somebody if they would like to subscribe to the American Automobile Association roadside assistance, well, if you do that in my home when my cars have just been serviced and they're running well, I may not be interested. But if you happen to catch me the morning after a flat tire the night before that I realized that my spare was also flat and I ruined a nice set of clothing trying to put a flat tire onto a car and replace another flat tire, then if AAA called me at that moment, my response might have been entirely different because I was highly motivated to take action. So one of the things you're looking for when you're trying to make connections and to drive your business forward is for the folks who are motivated. And that's key to making the business go forward. So we had an exercise here, write 5 statements you can say to potential customers about the market, the opportunity, and your expertise. And Mark, if I may call on you without putting you on the spot, give us some ideas around this. What would you say? What would you write? How would you approach the problem?
Hi, Bob. Hi, everybody.
Mark.
So what is the problem? Are we identifying the problem that we're going to be approaching?
Yeah, what we're basically doing is we're trying to get 5 statements that you could say to a potential customer, in other words, a client, about the market and the opportunity and your expertise to get a listing or to get a buyer to sign on with you.
Absolutely. Well, right now, we're talking about unprecedented times with regards to markets. So people have a lot of questions naturally, what has the response of the market been to our COVID situation? How are people moving forward? People are working from home now. Are they going to be exiting our very expensive market for greener pastures in other areas, right? So what are we seeing right now? What I'm seeing is a lot of media speculation. I'm not seeing a big influx of new listings. So what is that telling me? Is the market crashing or is the sky falling? Not really, right? I think that we're doing a pretty good job of keeping things moving. So what can we say to dispel maybe the fears in the markets, or maybe the fears within our spheres of influence, and just reassure them that things are still going pretty well as far as Bay Area real estate goes? So what do we point to? Well, we can point to market statistics. We can look at, see what our inventory is and what the demand is within the marketplace. So if we have inventory hovering around 1,500 units, we have active on the market available right now. We have 1,100 units approximately pending sale. Almost 75% of the of the homes on the market are matched with a buyer. So we're still seeing indications of a pretty strong seller's market, despite what we're hearing in the news. I remember pointing back to the last time things fell backwards in 2008. It's very different. The inventory skyrocketed, and we started seeing price reductions at a very rapid rate, with short sales coming to the market, undercutting homes by 20-25%. So we're not seeing any of that. We haven't seen any of that. Maybe is it coming in the next 30 to 60 days? The doomsday sayers potentially say yes, but from what I'm seeing is the number of pending sales is not falling off. If the number of pending sales started falling off, like if we were down to 500 pendings and 1,500 actives, I'd be a little more concerned. But if we've tracked them over the past few weeks, the gap between the actives and the pendings started to grow a little bit in March and April. And then in May, it started to shrink. And now that we're back in the groove, things are starting to get back in the groove, it's shrinking even more, which is telling me that our market's going to be very healthy. So what can we say to alleviate the stress of our sellers or people that are going to be selling in the short term? That, hey, despite the situation, the market is moving. We have plenty of pending sales. If you have to make a move now, it's not a bad time. We can get good value for your home. There's plenty of buyers in the marketplace.
Cool. Those are all great things to use in a conversation with a prospective buyer client or a listing client. Man,
and you can use the same situation, to attract the buyer if a buyer was looking, or you're looking to do so, because there is some fear in the marketplace, and there are possible opportunities, because not everyone shares my sentiment. Some people do have a doomsday sentiment, and those people, if you find them, I think they'll sell their property cheap. So be a master at doing that. And if you have people in your sphere of influence that have cash or ready to buy, let them know that you're on the hunt for opportunities.
Cool. Very good. Yeah, there's a lot of FUD in the air. What we used to refer to in high tech as fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD. And that's definitely the case right now. I don't think anybody knows which way this is going to go. And I know Alan, in talking with him in our office, Alan's seeing things moving very rapidly right now, but also there's a giant question mark when we get to November. What's going to happen there as we get to the elections, and whether or not there is a regime change? So between here and there, though, it looks like the signs are, from what you're saying and what I'm hearing others say when I talk to them, that it's not going to be all discouraging. We might have a pretty good market for a while.
I think so.
Cool. Anybody else on the call that's had some experience with this, about what to talk to potential buyer or seller clients about the way market is right now and how you uniquely fit into it? Anybody want to share anything?
This is Sanford. I used, actually, the last time I was on and Mark spoke, some of the information that he shared was very helpful in me working with a listing and getting it and that sort of thing, getting the person to price it right, as well as to move forward. So Mark, I appreciate that.
You're welcome anytime. Absolutely. So that's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Thanks for the feedback. That's great.
Interest rates are at an all-time low.
What are they running right now, Melissa? 30-year fixed.
I think around 3%
Wow.
from what I'm getting from a friend at Wells Fargo.
That's fantastic.
Well, it depends. If there's so many, they say there's that teaser rate at 2.75, but when even if you have a great credit score, it's like 3.8, 3.67 is the lowest when most people are approved with good credit because there's just too much demand.
Sure.
What you're
Remember,
seeing
each
out-
bank has relationships pricing too. So if they're banking there, they meet several criteria. They're going to reach those plateaus, but not everyone does.
So you're getting those rates in non-jumbos. So 510 and below, you're getting those rates. Carl just locked somebody at 2.7 something.
Wow, that's cool.
That's
Well, I still have a lot of people afraid, but I do have people that are interested in buying. I have a lot of buyers. It's still really challenging to get sellers. I mean, I have the duplex, there's some residential people, but the commercial people that don't need to sell, it's really tough.
yeah.
You know, unless I think some of the issues that the commercial people are still talking about, and right now I just called, and you all should, I think I forwarded to a lot of you, that rent control issue is going to create a lot of problems. So I was on the city of Berkeley, I was on for their golden duplex, but it's coming up. They sent it again, Bay East, and you guys should have gotten it from MLS, whatever you have. But that issue is that they're telling the tenants, and commercial tenants also, they don't have to pay for a year. They're trying to make it a law that it's going to be a loan. So they cannot pay, they'll be allowed to not pay for 1 year, and that will turn into a loan, and the building owner will have to go to court, small claims for a year. What small claims court can cover a year of not payments? So the owner is going to have to go to small claims court if the tenant doesn't pay. And so so all of you should call.
Wow.
That's a pretty serious. So I've been calling on the phone to City Hall, and I don't know how much they're listening, but what I brought up, I actually texted one of my neighbors, she is one of the managers for Berkeley, the Berkeley landlords. And so I heard her, I go, oh, good job. She said, oh, I didn't know you were listening. And I emailed, I didn't think I'd get on, but I could see a lot of emotion on both sides.
Yeah.
But the Berkeley and Oakland, the city council people are very tenant prone, and what there's very much lacking that the landlords brought up, and Karen from Oakland Berkeley Association of Realtors, I just said I said everybody has serious concerns, but you're talking about one small population helping all of affordable housing. You're talking about small landlords, and there's no analytics. And the landlord said, who is to say these two people that are complaining when they bought it as a golden duplex, that those are the majority, and how does it affect everyone? So the other issue that's going through where the tenant doesn't have to pay for a year, what came up on the air table is the attorney said, if the landlord has already given the tenant 1 year, and then the landlord still has to pay, then the landlord can get foreclosed on, and there's no kind of reprieve for the landlord. So
Right.
There's a lot of commercial people that are worried, especially office and retail.
Sure. I would be too. Yeah, I think that's one of those just double-edged problems. When you've got the concerns of people who rent and you've got the concerns of the landlord. I think the simple solution ought to be, if you do the concession on the rent side, okay, that's a compassionate thing to do. But the flip side is then the government should participate and cut the property tax during that period of time.
Dr. Berkeley.
Fair, right? I would let my income go for a year if I thought my renters, I only have one, but if it's a nice couple, they're young, they're both in the legal profession, and if they had a problem, I would forgive it for a year, not even make them pay it back, if the state or the county would say, fine, you're doing this, we will suspend property tax for that same year.
Well, you're gonna have to talk to San Jose too. They're putting it on the ballot also.
Yeah.
So Helen Chong was there till midnight one night. I stayed up till 9 something the other night and listened. And actually, I was shocked. I said, "They let me speak. How do I sound?" And she goes, "Oh, you sounded really good," because I tried to make it very more mathematical, and I think it should be spread. There is something new that just came out where the people that are selling on the internet can get taxed. We have a lot there. It goes through all the cities on the internet, and we
Yep.
don't benefit from that. So it could crush the downtowns if they do this. That's what
Oh,
they're
yeah,
feeling. Yeah. So
absolutely.
so I have a lot of eager buyers that think this is going to happen.
Yeah. You know, and if it comes to that, I rent my place out in Daly City just because I might as well. But I always intended when my boys finished school that would just become a weekend home. So any of us in the Bay Area of my family wants to get away towards San Francisco for a weekend or escape the heat, go up there and use it as a kind of like a getaway weekend home. So I don't know. I don't know that there's easy solutions. You can vote for me for governor of California.
Yeah.
Feel free. And I'll set all these things correct. And if that works well, you know, it's then to the White House.
All right, there you go. We're putting you on the next town hall meeting.
Remember that you heard it here first. Just kidding. I can't imagine how anyone survives in those environments. So these are all good things, things to consider and think about. Being able to vocalize to your potential clients what some of the unique things are going on in the area and what talents you bring to the table. You know, it's if you were raised like I was, you were raised to not particularly share things you think you're particularly good at. It would be seen as haughty, and I was raised to be humble. Okay, it may not have completely stuck, but the basic idea is sometimes it's kind of hard to toot your own horn. And every once in a while, you just need to find tasteful ways to do that. It's definitely appropriate in our industry. People need to know what value you bring. I've learned a lot from listening to Alan do it, because Alan's a humble guy when it comes right down to it. Yet at the same time, he's got some fantastic accomplishments and services to offer. So don't be afraid to put your services out there of the things you do well and differently than other folks that might be an advantage to your client, and be sure to bring those up and to bring those into the conversation. So this slide I threw in there, it doesn't directly refer back to 36, but this is on lead generation, find the motivated. So the difference between marketing and prospecting, and this one is the prospecting slide. So let's talk for a minute about the difference between a direct response and an indirect response. So a direct response basically puts the person on the spot, real time, to make a decision. So demand a direct answer, quickly identify those people who are ready to do business now, and are you ready to, for instance, hire me to handle the sale of your house? Yeah, that's pretty direct. Those are what we call binary. It's a yes or a no. There's only two answers. It's very difficult to say anything in between. Every time I've ever looked at automobiles, which I don't do anymore because new cars are too expensive, I love my old ones. But I used to go in there, and the first thing car salesman always says, put their hand, around your shoulder and go, "Well, Mr. Stolz, are you ready to buy that new car today?" This is what they're probing for. They're trying to figure out if you're actually a motivated buyer. And it doesn't hurt to do that in real estate, to be able to determine whether or not the person you're talking to is ready to go right now. And then there's an indirect response. Messages are perceived by the buyer or sellers as safe. They're non-threatening. They don't require you to have an immediate action. It's an indirect response, great for lead generation tools to develop a level of comfort and rapport with a potential customer over time. So this is building a relationship. And building the relationship is different than pressing for the answer right at the time. And then, of course, the $24.99 question, which everyone has on the tip of their tongue, is how do I know the difference? How do I know which one to use? And wow, that is a complicated answer. In this case, it's going to rely on everything you can do in understanding verbal communication, body language, being able to understand and hear the emotion behind the words that are being spoken. And that's really tricky. And now I figure that since I joined Keller Williams in January, I think my call count up is between 600 and 700 now. And I can tell you that's more strangers than I have talked to in the previous 63 years of my life. So this was something really new for me. And what I began to learn in that massive, uncomfortable process was to be able to discern the conversation and figure out whether or not the person I was talking to was motivated and had a reason to consider a change right at that moment, or whether it was something they were being polite, but not really interested. They weren't uninterested, but they weren't really interested. Certainly not ready to make a change today. And then the others that let you know on no uncertain terms that they're absolutely positively not interested in ever talking to you again, or anyone you're related to, or any of your ancestral offspring. So you just got to be ready for whichever one it is. Now, when I started out, the first couple hundred calls, it was tough to tell the difference. But I can tell you by the 400 call mark, and then on up to the present day around 600 calls, I only get surprised every once in a while. And I've got to honestly say, 2 days ago, I got surprised, Monday. And I was talking to a person, and it was a second conversation about the advantages of the office that we were in. And they told me they had an offer from another office. I said, great. Would you like to share the math? And we'll figure out if this makes sense from a math standpoint, since this person was very interested in the analytical side of it as a decision point. And she told me what was offered. And I just kind of smiled and said, I can't even get close to that. Just can't. I said, I can do, 5 or 6 of these points and I can do them well. But when it comes right down to it, for the big point in that offer you've received, I can't even come close. I would have to do a win-lose scenario to negotiate that and make it a contract. So the individual says, well, what do you think I should do? I said, take it. I would just take it. That's the offer of the century. Just take it. And I thought, okay, so in the back of my mind, I'm playing the recording that says, there is no way in this entire green earth that I am ever going to get this deal, period. It's not going to happen. I don't have the best thing on the table. So before I said goodbye, this individual said, oh, and by the way, Bob, do you guys have team meetings? And I said, yeah. She goes, could I come to one? And I said, sure. Would you like to? And she said, yeah, and I'd like to tour your office. And I said, well, that'd be fantastic. I would love to show you around. I've enjoyed the conversation. She goes, I like the way you approach things. And that was it. You literally could have knocked me over with a paper straw. Literally. I had no idea. I couldn't see that one coming. But those are the kinds of things that you need to err just a little bit on the bold side of things, because you never know what's motivating the person. Now, I know she was motivated to move. I know she had a better offer from a number standpoint on the table, but there was something else that was broken on the other side of the fence. And I could guess at it, but it's neither here nor there because I don't know. But the relationship actually did carry it to the next step. So I would encourage you, when you use direct messaging or indirect messaging, in this case, I stopped pressing her with direct messaging because I pretty much knew her answer would be no. But then what I found out indirectly from the rest of the conversation was she was actually still interested. So it's a little bit different for me because I'm recruiting instead of canvassing agents to be agent for a buyer or a seller, but the dynamic is very similar, very similar. Any thoughts on this? Have you guys run into this? And how do you deal with it?
Well, Bob, kind of speaking on what you were just experiencing, I mean, we have to understand that what we're selling as an office or as a service is we're not the lowest price.
Right.
We're not the lowest price solution. So when you get back to that scenario, price competitiveness, is that the most important thing? Well, not to some people it is. Some people it is to a fault, but not to everybody.
No.
And if you first see your value, right, and are able to express your value, you may make a connection which will overcome that price hurdle, and that's absolutely possible in every situation. You just have to have the right value proposition at the end of the day, and it doesn't have to be the cheapest. Yeah, but you have to have something.
Right. And right along that line, normally to be able to say, hey, you're an agent. We'd like to recruit you. Do you do it for, $500 flat fee when you represent a client? And they say, no, I get 6%. I said, that's right, because you do a good job and that's your business. We do a good job and that's our business. So we don't do it for free. What threw me off on that one, Mark, was it was another KW office. So they have a lot of the same arrows in their quiver that we do.
Sure.
So yeah, it's a good point. Well made.
I mean, we all have to have our points of differentiation, right?
Yeah.
Even amongst ourselves. So between the different KW offices, we do have some unique points to our office that you can always highlight, and a lot of that's just expertise and people, willing to share.
Right. Good point.
One of the things I found is that if their need meets your value, in other words, if the value that you're offering and their need pretty much aligns up, and they have the ability to recognize that value by what you say and the questions you ask, the chances of you getting that relationship going is very high. But if you're just coming in with just an expectation of saying, okay, I need to get this deal, but there's no need, you're kind of whistling in the wind.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Sanford. Cool. Anybody else? Okie doke. Let's move on. Okay, for direct responses, you can ask questions like, are you thinking of moving? That's pretty direct. Do you want me to help you get the home of your dreams? Yeah, the problem is the home of my dreams also has a completely unrealistic price tag, but it is what it is. Are you considering selling your home? Okay. Do you want me to handle the sale of your home? Those are all kind of yes, no questions, and they put the person on the spot. So you need enough of this to push forward with your business, but not so much of it that causes them to bristle and raise the resistance. And it's practice and your personal dynamics. Everything that you bring to the table in communication is what will make the difference. Prospecting offers for indirect response include, I'm doing a survey in your area. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions? And that one cracks me up because, so many times I've talked to real estate agents through the years who have had every line in, hey, I sold a house, on the block. Are you interested? Hey, I noticed that you had an old leaky Jaguar in your front yard. Me too. There's all kinds of things like that, I don't know. They can work. You have to stay genuine when you use them. I like the one, I just sold a home down the street and there's lots of interest in buyers. Do you know anyone else who might be interested in selling your home? Yeah, that's completely legitimate. It's better than a survey. How many of us actually are professional survey takers? Maybe you are. I'm not, and I don't like using that one. Okay, I create a newsletter with great information about real estate trends in your area. May I send it to you? That's great. I like that one. And I particularly like it because it asks permission. And this is something I've found in calling or anytime I'm working with someone and I need something out of them. I always ask their permission. May I send you an email about the open house that we're having in March? May I send you a follow-up email? Is this the right email address? Would it be okay if I call you back in a month? Since you're not interested right now, but you said you might be then. Would that be okay with you? I always do that. And I find that generally speaking, people appreciate it. That you're not just pushing on them, that you're going to do something that they may just as soon not have you do. So I like that tag on the end of that third one, may I, and then an ellipsis mark, ...
Say, Robert?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, when we could knock on doors, okay? This is
Right.
back in the day, right? I used to, I would use a script that I came up with while I was out there. And it was, I'd go in, I'd just say, well, you know, knocking on the door, I'm so-and-so, I'm Sanford, and your neighbor is selling their home. And what I'm doing is coming out and letting everyone know about it, you know, and if you know of anybody that's looking to buy or sell, that sort of thing,
Right.
you know, please let me know. And then I would do the old Columbo thing, which was like, oh, by the way, when someone comes into the open house, what should I tell them the reason why they should buy in this neighborhood? And basically, and then I would ask, how long have you been here? And then they would say, oh, I've been here 10 years. Oh, so you one of the originals, right? So you would know the deep secrets and why people should buy, correct? So could you tell me? And I just get a piece of paper out and, you know, put my head down like I'm going to write. That I found to be the most effective way of establishing, even folks that would, I mean, these were typically folks that would close the door on you before they open it, right?
Yeah.
And these people would be, and one lady, I had to literally almost run away from her. I stood there for about 20 minutes. Because basically once you ask them to be the expert, see, you come to the door and you're the expert, okay, that's one thing. But if you came to the door and you asked them to be the expert, that's a whole nother thing.
Wow, that is really cool. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome.
Yes, thank you. That was fantastic.
Very cool. I'm still waiting for the day when one of my neighbors sells and comes to my door and says, hello, Mr. Stolz. We're going to be selling the house next door. Do you have any friends or people you would like to live next door? And I've already got my response ready. I'm going to say, yes. I'm going to pick up the phone and call Rosamund Pike and Emily Mortimer and see if any of them are free and would like to buy a house next door. That would be lovely. But probably won't happen. So yeah, that's great. Make them the expert. Fantastic way to do it. Any other thoughts on this? That's why we get together and talk as a group, because we have some good ideas. Each of you probably has unique ideas too that others haven't thought of.
My last door knocking experience, I just partnered with a charity. So I was approaching them from a place of being part of and helping the community, but also getting the word out of the services that I can provide to the people in the neighborhood. And also came from kind of a matchmaker place where I could either bring you in on the charity in some way, or help you or your friends or family with any of my real estate services.
Cool. That's a great combination because you're doing good while you're canvassing. Awesome. Great idea. Okay, let's move on. Marketing offers for indirect responses. Second, my phone is dinging off the hook here. Okay. Would you like to know the value of your home? Visit my website. Get access to a list of best buys. Call this toll-free number. Those are all good. Pretty much everybody that I know is interested in knowing what their home is worth. Even when I was working with Alan the other day, he decided to use as an example my house. So we tried to figure out how much my house was worth, which is actually a bit of a problem because of how old it is and how checkered the neighborhood is between old and new development. So it makes it really challenging. So yeah, these kinds of things, always good to have. This I would call fishing, because what you're doing is you're casting bait out and seeing if somebody is interested enough to bite and find out what it is that you're offering. And I like this. I think these are good ways to do it, but they're not a substitute for the direct ways of doing it. The dream home's an interesting one. It's kind of impossible around here because I still live in the world of the $1.2 million fixer-upper, even in West San Jose, which boggles my brain that there is such a thing. And of course, you go up into Los Altos Hills, having the last property that's not been redone in Los Altos Hills as the $6.8 million fixer-upper is an even more ludicrous concept. But anybody outside the area just doesn't get it. So all good things. Be sure to get the motivation temperature is what you're trying to take when you're talking to folks. See how motivated they are to move on what you're offering. So an indirect response plus a direct response, it can be added together, call it a 1-2 punch. Indirect, begin with this indirect response. I just sold a home down the street. Do you know anyone else who may be interested in selling their house? No, well, thank you anyway. Okay, direct. Before I leave, do you mind if I ask another question? Are you considering selling your home? Those are all legit. That's a fair thing to do. So you can mix and match, and you can move them around however you need it in order to be able to get the job done. I remember growing up, I was pretty quiet most of the time, but occasionally would get into arguments with a sibling. And my mother sat me down one time when I was 14 or 15 years old, and she said, I need to teach you the 5 secret words to success. And I said, really, Mom, what are those? And she goes, okay, you paying attention? I go, yeah. She goes, oh, huh, really? My, interesting. She said you can use those in any order, in any combination, as fast as you want to use them, and it will help you calm any situation you're ever in when you're in an argument. She was right. So for us, the direct and the indirect can be balanced, and those can be the magic words and sentences that get us that client and get them on board. So we're going to want to practice that. Okay, sources of leads. Where do we get leads? Prospecting and marketing. Remember the difference. Prospecting is verbal, either face-to-face or on the phone. Marketing is through another media. There's a lot of interesting things in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent about that. Focus on prospecting with direct response offers, quickest path to business. Cost is low, can be mastered. So prospecting is good. All it relies upon is a little bit of your planning and your pre-learned skills for communication. Might as well use it. Environment for prospecting, no distractions, preferably a closed door, a mirror to watch your expressions. Okay. Script to know what to say and no interruptions. So a few things to say about that. Distractions and eliminating those, awesome idea. You don't want to have a million other things on your mind. Inevitably, when I start this class, I forget to turn the IMs onto silent mode, and it starts dinging and it distracts me and doesn't help me speak. The mirror, well, the mirror seems kind of weird, but yeah, I see why you do it. I'm finding that Zoom is actually really nice because you can kind of see how you're talking and how you're holding yourself. It really gives you an advantage because it gives you direct feedback on how you appear to someone else. And then scripts, know your scripts. The only thing I would say there is always make a script your own. You can use it word for word and memorize it. And if you're a better actor than I am, you can probably deliver it so that it sounds as if you're not reciting something from memory. But if you aren't, then take the key concepts, circle them in the script, use those as your notes, and then put it in your own words as you're speaking with the client. And then no interruptions. It's best to lock yourselves away. We have one one female member of a team in our office that I know that she has a very busy life with her children and her husband and home, and she's also a fantastic agent. And I am told by her team leader that she very carefully time boxes her day so that when she concentrates on her real estate, there are no interruptions, there are no distractions. She really concentrates. And because she's a very disciplined individual, she gets the job done, even though she has a limited time to do it. And that's important, to be able to focus, get things done. So what are the sources of our leads? These are all known. This is kind of real estate 101. Expired listings, for sale by owners after like 3 weeks when they realize it's not going to work. Open houses, investors. I've spoken to quite a few people in the Bay Area that I was surprised that all they do for lead generation is open houses. There was one agent I spoke with that has a $20 million volume, which isn't huge, but it's also not novice territory either. And all she does for lead generation is open houses. And she doesn't even keep a database, which I thought was really interesting. But I guess when contacts call her back for the next house, she just, oh yeah, I remember that, and away you go. So there's a lot of different ways to approach that. That's not the KW way, but it certainly is a way that works. And at the end of the day, we draw the line where the rubber hits the road. In other words, pragmatists about what works and what doesn't. If it works, use it. Okay, get back to your Mets and past clients. These are important. Remind them you're in real estate. That's important. It's always kind of surprises me when somebody knows you went into real estate and then they'll say something like, are you still in real estate? I don't remember. So we definitely want to keep those kinds of encounters to a minimum. Remind them that you're there, update them on the market, obviously enthusiastic and positive. Ask for business referrals anytime you get a chance. Friends should never mind to give friends referrals, and usually they're forthcoming with it. And treat them special. Everybody wants to be treated in a special and unique way. So, so do it. It's just a kind, nice thing to do. Try something new. Get out in your community. Internet, there's blogs and all kinds of video email and all kinds of stuff. And the marketing opportunities we have at KW are huge because of all of the technology and the investment in command and the ability to put together campaigns and marketing materials for basically pennies and really rapidly, and then distribute them easily. Something new, some more of that might be talk to builders, multinational groups, generational groups, uncover the buyers. So one of the things I've thought about doing to do just kind of a small real estate work on the side, because I would like to do that in addition to being a team leader, is people in my neighborhood who are my age that are looking to retire somewhere else. There's quite a few of them, and I'm one of them. So it might work out very nicely that I can talk to them about the pros and cons and understand the emotions of raising a family in a house, and you know, your entire family history is recorded in the growth charts and the doorways, and you know, there are various pets buried on the property. There's a lot of reasons why it's hard to leave. So find out what those special situations are, generational groups, anything you need and you can connect with to find the buyers. Okay, prospecting, direct responses. Here are some. I pulled these right out of your student materials because I just thought the way they had it set up in the slides was not as good as just looking at these directly. So read through these. They have some excellent ways to get a conversation going, whether you're looking for a direct answer or an indirect one, depending on how much pressure you want to put on. Marketing, here's some good examples. You want to sell your home now? Are you looking for a home of your dreams? Do you need to sell your home? Call me today. These are always important to have the statements in there. Call me today. Would you call me? I don't know. Would I? Call me today. Oh, I should call you today. That's just a linguistic sales technique that is pretty tried and true. I have buyers who are interested. That's true. I get at least 2 or 3 postcards a month about we have a buyer and we're ready to buy your house. So yeah, that works. I can help you get the most net income from the sale of your home. This is an interesting one, especially with this idea of doing renovation as part of optimizing the sale profit for the home. So in other words, let's say before you try to sell the house, you put $50,000 into the kitchen and you can get $70,000 additional out of the house. That would make sense to do. So those are the kinds of things you need specific expertise to give the right advice. And it's a good idea to look at those kind of creative activities. So, and then you've got the opportunity to put them together, the direct and the indirect. The main thing I would say is try to find the balance and read it from the person you're speaking with. Are they starting to resist because you're being too direct? Or are they maybe more interested than your questions are leading them? And do you need to push a little harder? Probing and being polite and trying to find the balance with the individual person you're talking to, really important. Okay, then we're to the bottom line. We're almost to the end of this section. I think I'm going to go ahead and blast through it so we can start section 5 next week. If you'll bear with me for another 3 or 4 minutes. So get going, shift your mindset, study your market and the industry daily, practice what you say daily, lead, generate 3 hours daily, use direct response and prospecting, find the motivated buyers and sellers and ask for business. What's the common thread here? Discipline. Discipline. Discipline will take you when nothing else will. So I'm a musician. I have one of my college degrees in performance of woodwind instruments. And I was an artist at one point. And I remember various coaches and tutors and professors along the way saying some interesting things to me, like being great is 10% genius and 90% perspiration. It's sweating it out and making it work. And then there's that little spark, that last 10%, that's just part of who you are. And you either have it or you don't in some degree. So in all of these, to be great real estate agents, if we shift right, we should be looking for creativity to express our direct and indirect marketing and questioning. We ought to be looking for new ways, and we need to be disciplined. Absolutely has to be done. It's the hardest part. You know, I used to tell the boys when they were teenagers, the 2 sons that I raised, and I said, if you want to beat 90% of the people at school, show up. If you want to beat 95% of them, show up on time. And that's what you have to do. You have to have the discipline to get it done. So action plan. So I'd like you to kind of take a look at this next section, slide 54 and 55. And what you're basically being asked to do here is it's somewhere on or about page 57 in your manual. It tells you what the challenge is, and then you're to rate it. I would say let's use just a simple one, hard, medium, or easy. So 1, 2, or 3. And then action steps of what you're going to do. So as an example, let's take the second one because it's short. I know that my mindset affects my business. Is that hard or easy for me to accept? Okay, maybe it's hard. And then what action steps are you going to take? Maybe I'm going to do some affirmations every morning about people don't mind when I talk to them. It's good to realize that my business will grow. And there's all kinds of things you can do to correct and to grow through limitations that are keeping you from reaching your full potential. So if you'd like, next week, I'd kind of like to start with these 2 and kind of see what the group thinks and where we are and some of the creative ways we're trying to increase and improve our effectiveness as agents. So with that, we're like 4 minutes over, 3 minutes over. I'm going to thank you all very much for attending. I hope this has been useful. We'll meet again next week. We'll start with this and then on into section 5. Have a lovely, productive afternoon, each and every one. Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bob.
You're all welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.